You open an app, you see a face, in under a second, you already know if you're interested. You don't think about it, you just feel it. But the real answer for why that face grabbed you is far stranger than swiping culture. It reaches back 300,000 years into caves and grasslands and firelight, long before mirrors, before makeup, before anyone ever said the word beautiful out loud. So were ancient humans actually attractive? And by whose standards would they even be judged? Start with the face. Your brain is built to read faces before it reads almost anything else. Newborns only minutes old already prefer looking at symmetrical, face-like arrangements over random shapes. Nobody teaches a baby to do that. It's wired in before birth. The researcher Judith Langlois wanted to know why symmetry mattered so much. In a series of studies through the 1990s, she had people rate digitally averaged composite faces, blends of dozens of individual photographs, against real, single faces. Again and again, the composites won. The blend, the average, the middle of the bell curve, that's what people called beautiful. That should feel backwards. You'd expect the most unique, most striking face to win. Instead, sameness did. Why would evolution reward the average over the exceptional? Because an average, symmetrical face is a walking advertisement for stability. A face built from typical, balanced proportions suggests that the genes behind it developed without much disruption. No unusual mutations, no developmental stress interrupting growth in the womb, no parasites throwing the body's construction plan off course. Symmetry became a rough, imperfect readout of health long before anyone could run a blood test or sequence a genome. The biologist Randy Thornhill spent years chasing this signal directly. He and his colleagues measured facial and bodily symmetry across large groups of people and kept finding the same pattern. More symmetrical individuals reported better overall health. They also reported more sexual partners over their lifetimes. Symmetry wasn't decoration. In a crude evolutionary sense, it was data. Now picture an actual human 20,000 years ago. No dentistry, no skincare, no antibiotics waiting in a cabinet, survive childhood, survive a handful of infections, survive a bad tooth without it turning into the thing that kills you. If your face still came out even and symmetrical after all of that, it was already telling a story of resilience. So yes, by the exact logic your brain still runs today, a healthy ancient human with even balanced features would have registered as attractive. Not glamorous, not styled, but biologically compelling in precisely the way faces still are now. The body followed a different, more specific rule. The psychologist Devendra Singh focused on one measurement, the ratio between waist and hips. Across cultures, across a wide range of body sizes, he found a consistent preference for a particular ratio in women, roughly 7/10 waist compared to hip. Not thinness on its own, not size on its own. A ratio? Why would a ratio outrank overall size? Because that shape correlates with hormonal patterns tied to fertility and reproductive health. It was, once again, a visible signal for something otherwise invisible at a time when there was no other way to know it. Height and visible strength carried their own weight for men, broader shoulders, defined muscle, a jawline shaped by testosterone during development. None of that was a fashion choice. Each one was a fitness proxy, quietly advertising the ability to hunt, to defend a group, to survive a hard season when the margins were thin. None of this required conscious calculation. Nobody stood in a cave measuring waist ratios with a length of vine. The preference operated beneath awareness, the same way yours does now when a face just does something for you and you can't quite say what. Here's where it gets stranger. The evolutionary psychologist David Buss ran cross-cultural studies across dozens of societies on 6 continents, and the underlying instincts held remarkably steady. Health cues, symmetry, visible vitality. But the surface expression of those cues shifted with the environment. In colder climates, a bit more body fat meant a bit more insurance against famine, so it read as attractive there. In regions with heavier parasite and disease loads, clear skin and strong symmetry became even more prized because they signaled a body that had already survived a harsher filter. The psychologist Steve Gangestad, working alongside Thornhill, tied this directly to what's now called the pathogen stress hypothesis. The higher the local disease burden, the more a population's preferences sharpened around visible signs of a healthy immune system. Attraction wasn't fixed. It was a flexible response to local risk. There's another twist buried in the bones themselves. Anthropologists studying skull remains have tracked a slow softening in human facial structure over tens of thousands of years. Smaller brow ridges, less pronounced jaws, a gentler overall shape. Researchers, including Brian Hare, have linked this pattern to what's known as self-domestication. The idea that humans who cooperated well and tolerated others survived and reproduced more successfully than those who didn't. Over enough generations, faces literally softened alongside temperament. Which means the ancient human standing in front of you would not have had the heavy, jutting brow of a much older ancestor. That version had already faded out tens of thousands of years earlier. What remained was a face shaped generation after generation by cooperation as much as by combat. So picture that ancient human again, wrong teeth by modern standards, no dental alignment, skin weathered by a lifetime spent outdoors with no sunscreen, hair kept short or matted out of necessity rather than style. But underneath the surface, the architecture itself, the symmetry, the ratios, the muscle definition earned through actual daily survival would still trigger the same ancient circuitry in your brain that responds to a face on a screen right now. Your brain doesn't know the difference between health carved by a hard winter and health carved by a gym membership. It just reads the signal. Think about what that means for you. Scrolling right now. You believe you're making a modern aesthetic judgment shaped by movies, filters, algorithms. Really, you're running software older than agriculture. Every time you find a face symmetrical and clean, you're echoing Langlaw's averaged composites. Every time a certain body shape catches your eye without you knowing exactly why, you're echoing Singh's ratio. Every time confidence and visible health outweigh any specific trend, you're echoing Buss's cross-cultural constant and Gangstad's pathogen signal sitting quietly underneath it. This is also why beauty standards drift decade to decade, culture to culture, while a handful of preferences barely move at all. Hair length, makeup, clothing, whatever jaw or body shape is trending in the media this year, that's surface fashion. And fashion always changes. But clear skin, symmetrical features, a waist to hip ratio inside a fairly narrow range, visible vitality. Those signals surface again and again across wildly different societies because they were never really about fashion to begin with. They were about information your ancestors needed and had no other way to get. So would you have found an actual Paleolithic human attractive standing in front of you right now? Strip away the missing teeth, the sun damage, the unfamiliar hairstyle, and underneath is exactly the kind of face and body your instincts are already primed to notice. Symmetrical, proportionate, visibly capable. The packaging would look foreign to you, the signal underneath it would not, and that's the part nobody expects going in. Attraction was never really about beauty in the aesthetic sense at all. It was a survival calculation, running silently, long before anyone had a word for what beauty even meant. You still open that app, you still see a face, you still decide in under a second, But now you know what's actually happening in that second. Not fashion, not culture, not an algorithm. 300,000 years of instinct, deciding for you, all over again,